The Dark Triad. The Dark Triad is a psychological concept referring to the three personality traits: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Dark because these are in general, let's say, malevolent qualities. Research has shown that many successful leaders incorporate these characteristics more than the average person does. Maybe this indicates that these traits could help us become more successful leaders. Every person incorporates these three characteristics, but of course to different degrees. So let's dive into these characteristics a bit more. Narcissism. Narcissism is referring to excessive self-admiration, selfishness, a sense of entitlement, lack of empathy, and it stems back to the story of the Greek mythological story of Narcissus, who was a hunter and he fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water in a lake, and he couldn't help himself but just gaze into his own reflection, and he loved it so much that he got closer and closer to the water till he eventually fell in and drowned. Psychopathy. Psychopaths have impaired empathy. They sort of can't feel empathy. They are manifesting amoral, unethical behavior. They show no remorse and they are extremely egocentric. And psychopaths are very interesting because they are often the hardest of the three characteristics, psychopathy, to detect, because psychopaths are very often very charming. So they will deceive you. Finally, Machiavellianism refers to somebody who will do whatever it takes to reach their goal. They will manipulate, deceive, and exploit others. So they are master manipulators. And Machiavellianism comes from Niccolo Machiavelli, who was an old Italian poet, a philosopher and diplomat. And he wrote a book called The Prince, which was a book on giving advice to politicians on how to reach political power. And he said, "A prince never lacks good reasons to break his promise." Well, that says it all. Sort of do whatever it takes to reach your goal. Now, when I say maybe these traits can make us more successful, one needs to be very careful here, because these are generally quite malevolent characteristics, and you don't want to incorporate these too much, because if we have more psychopaths in the world, I wouldn't say the world will be set out on a good trajectory, not at all. But you need to connect these characteristics with self-awareness. Be aware of what you're doing, but try to encourage them, because they can benefit us to a certain degree. For example, I want you to reflect now on 3 questions I have for you. Why do these traits predict success? Question number 1. 2. Do you recognize any of these traits in yourself? Narcissism, psychopathy, or Machiavellianism? And 3, which traits would you like to develop, or do you think could be beneficial to you? So you can stop the video now and answer these 3 questions. Okay, to the answers. Why do these traits predict success? I would say narcissism can help because it entails self-belief, which I will explain in a second with a tangible example. Self-belief that you are a valuable person, you deserve well, and that can project positive attraction. So you attract belief, other people will believe in you more. Psychopathy, if you just care less about what other people think, that can be very beneficial to us, because that often, at least I do also, worry too much about other people's opinions, what they think, etc. And number 3, Machiavellianism, well, you'll just do more what it takes to get to your goal. That's really it. Okay, so a tangible example. Oh, and now, okay, you can reflect on which traits you find in yourself. For example, I would say I have narcissistic tendencies sometimes, that I believe I deserve good, or I believe I will be successful in my life, whatever happens. Yeah. Now, as a tangible example, there is a lady called Elizabeth Holmes. She's an entrepreneur from the US. She graduated from Stanford. And she set up a company called Theranos, which claimed to have built a blood testing device. And this blood testing device was revolutionary because it claimed to test the blood for illnesses. And it was revolutionary because it could test the blood very quickly and with only a little amount of blood necessary. It turned out it couldn't deliver its promise, and the company collapsed. At one point in time, Theranos was valued at $9 billion US dollars, which is enormous. Now, how did Elizabeth Holmes set up this company, maybe fraudulent company, to be valued at $9 billion? She was so believable, and she onboarded many famous investors to invest in the company. So it looked to me as if she was a serious narcissist, because she was so determined and so convinced of what she was doing, that it was right and it was true, and that somehow was able to convince other people. And I mean, now she's valued at $0 US dollars, which is, not a nice place to end at. But it's an example of how narcissism can help you build amazing, huge entities. But of course, it's a perfect example of, if you take it too far, it'll be the reason for your downfall. So be careful of it, and connected with self-awareness, so you don't take it too far. Okay, so that was the Dark Triad, and why maybe it might be useful as a leader to incorporate these characteristics with self-awareness, of course, so to incorporate them with moderation. So thanks for listening, guys.